Ever wonder what the climb was like for some of the most influential figures in the music industry? How did they navigate this crazy world of music, and what stories do they have to tell?
And now I've learned, like, all those things that sat on a shelf and waited are still on a shelf waiting, because you're always going to beat what you've made. And that's a really encouraging thing that I try to share with everyone, not just creatives. It's like you're always going to be capable of beating what you just did.
This is Road to the Arena, a series by Triad Music, whose goal is to create cutting-edge music technology designed to eliminate the mystery surrounding money in the music industry. Today's guest is Hunter Hayes, a multi-platinum singer-songwriter and a performer of basically every single musical instrument. And in this episode, Hunter lets you into his very thoughtful music mind, as we talk about everything from artificial intelligence in music to people getting their start with TikTok, and even how commerce and instant feedback plays into your role as an artist and a creator. And Hunter also talks you through his early stories of being 4 or 5 years old, playing with Hank Williams Jr. on television, all the way to current day where he's making some of the best music of his life. We can't wait for you to hear this story. If you're listening to this episode with small children or in a car where children might hear, there is some language which is not appropriate for all audiences. We just wanted to let you know before you begin playing the episode. Without further ado, here's Hunter Hayes. All right, Hunter.
Hello.
Fresh off of residency in Hawaii.
I'm just glad we're recording this conversation, because every other conversation that you and I have is always really inspiring for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm just glad this one's going to be recorded for the world to hear.
Oh, no. There's a few things missing.
Should I get a glass of wine?
Yes, you should.
And just get ready for some insults. Okay. Both directions, but hilarious ones. No, Hunter is good at the zinger, so hopefully we have a couple. But yes, I'm very inspired all the time as well, and we just don't happen to be at Casa.
Yeah, we're not smoking cigars this time around.
All right, awesome. All right, Wendy.
Yes.
3 crazy questions. What's yours?
So what do you think about these artists that are coming out now that are just like getting their deals on TikTok, getting 500,000 views, getting this, getting that, and they're becoming like TikTok famous, and then they go out into the real world, and it's kind of like, everybody's kind of like, what's happening?
Well, I think both and, right? Because like there's always been a way to get to people, right? Whether it was Dad Sullivan's show or it's TikTok.
Exactly.
We've always had to adapt to how do we get to as many people as possible. So, and then you have to consider, what do you want? What do you want out of your career? You know, do you want virality right now? Because the practice that it will take to craft the amount of work that goes into being good at TikTok is an enormous lift. And so your decision to track that down just means that is you're putting all of your work and or having to diversify constantly, right? Like having to be good at a million things. So it's honestly, it's daunting for me to watch. And I think it's just a matter of what you want, because I think once you get on stage, it's very different, and or crafting an album or crafting music is very different. And I think it's just, there's always been multiple avenues. Like I think of my God, okay, crazy, weird tangent, but like think of the amount of people that we have found through like Disney's or Nickelodeon's, like the amount of superstars we've actually seen come from those worlds. Whereas, you know, even then you would have said, oh, well, they were written off. Like I remember people writing off Miley Cyrus, and like she's an icon.
Absolutely. And
you have so many of those people who, just because I don't know, I don't think you can define anybody by how they get discovered or what they put all their time in to for a season. I think, and maybe I misunderstood the question, but no. I think, I think it's opened the door for a lot of people who wouldn't have been discovered.
Right.
That's a conversation we could have for an hour and a half.
Absolutely.
As I'm sure you already have. I just respect the shit out of anybody who does that much work for it.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, they have to change it all the time. They're constantly have to be on it. And they have.
You're getting an email a week about what's the best way to use the app. There's not even like, hey, here's a great way to speak to your audience. It's like, hey, we just changed the rules.
Yeah.
If you want to succeed, here's how to follow it. And it's like, well, shit.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, no, like literally.
So true. It's so true.
No, literally, Valerie sent me, Hunter's manager, a video that's like, hey, here's the blueprint for TikTok. I was exhausted watching the video.
Yeah.
I wasn't even doing the things.
Yeah.
Just like hearing them talk about like, oh, here's the 7,000 things each week you need to do to make this work.
Yeah.
That was exhausting.
Yeah.
It's wild. But no, I mean, I think like if your perspective is pretty open to it, that's telling, right? As a person who's spent so much time building
because you had
ability.
people that, I mean, before TikTok, people had to spend so much, you're right, so much time. Like you had to go through all the steps and it was like, how do I get out there? I have to get a platform. What's my platform?
My only controversial statement here, and
No, we like controversial statements.
well, but this is more of a discussion forum,
right?
Like category,
right?
And that is, can there be more options?
Yeah.
Because right now there are just if you have to subscribe to one thing, and we're all getting fed things that are more specific to what we like, which means that our world is growing smaller as it grows bigger. And for an artist, that's a really difficult place to navigate. That's not how you reach people. So that's my only like sort of like discussion starter is like, how do we get more of those, or how do we open up the algorithm a little bit somehow? It's like, it's a dumb thing to say because I don't understand how that works, period. But that's something I would like to see is more variety in how brilliant young creators can reach the audience that is going to love what they do. They just have to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the market always conspires to go the other way.
Yeah.
You know, one or two big guys. Today it's just Instagram and TikTok and maybe a little bit Snapchat.
Yeah.
That's about it for now. But the other thing that's weird is that originally, like when Facebook was the first real feed-oriented app, the feed was totally chronological. And so way back when, you got everything because there weren't that many people on Facebook. And then as it became overwhelming, you know, this person liked this person photo, this person liked this photo, you have 1 million people on Facebook or 10 million or 100 million. They came up with an algorithm. And then they realized that that was a better business. It was just kind of hard. It's sort of random that it happened that way. They did it to solve a problem, but there were too much stuff in the feed. So then now it's the sort of why would you not do an algorithm? Right? It's better for business. Right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of awful. I agree. Because you don't really know why you're getting what you're getting. And then sometimes you do know, like you say, like, you know, Lexus, and then like 5 Lexus ads pop up on you're like, whoa.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, you basically put steroids into a thing that was originally good. Targeted marketing is a good thing in every field, right? And forever, people have probably been trying to figure out who's listening to the music where.
Yeah.
Via probably harder to access data. Now something was much more accessible in every area. And so, but then when you start to throw steroids on it, it gets to be just so, it's so fine grained that it becomes difficult to navigate. So it's like, it was originally a good thing. It's just grown to a point where it's insane. And so we need somebody to come up with a solution. Maybe we should do it.
I read this interview with the programmer who came up with the original YouTube algorithm, because the first algorithm really was on YouTube to recommend videos. And he did it as a project to kind of like manage the fact that it was unmanageable and just random. And he's explained how he created it and everything. And like now he hates it. He quit. He's like, I wish I'd never done it.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Is that the same guy who did the endless scrolling? The endless scroll?
It's not the same guy. I remember that one too. That was also the same exact thing. It's really insidious.
He's like, I hate it now. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I have a sort of different question for you. How do you like, you know, in the old days, I mean, a while ago, I'm an artist who created and performed. I wouldn't say they were innocent, but they were a little more removed from the commerce side until they got feedback after the fact. Either they performed and the crowd loved it, or they got record sales or whatever. But now it's all so interwoven in everything. How do you keep your brain from exploding? Like, you know, you're like, is this not commercial enough? You know, like you get instant feedback, which is both great and horrible. And like, how do you manage that?
Every artist has to reinvent how they manage it, and on their own, and you know, their own pace, their own way. It's one of the reasons I've been such an advocate for. You know, I think, and we've seen versions of this, but I think every artist that ends up giving, you know, signing a contract to give a percentage of what they make to a large corporation, a company, whatever. When it comes to mental wellness, like that is the work you have to do. It all comes down to that because you're selling your story, you're selling yourself, you're selling something so personal.
Yeah.
That it is not you are making a product, but you are so much a part of that product. And that's a great point. That may be the most like complex part of it from the artist standpoint. The artist is expected to be an expert at everything,
Right.
and be good at everything and like figure everything out. I mean, I'm really kind of exhausted hearing large companies with really clever people be like, well, Simon works on TikTok, and like, well, okay, and that's great. And like, can you bet on something that maybe hasn't been found yet?
Yeah, right.
That has the potential and all those things, and because like somebody like me, like I'm not a marketing dude. Like I don't do that. I mean, I like coming up with ideas, and I love being creative. But I can't imagine having to start from scratch right now of like, all right, how do I get to the people? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Yeah, but I think made the greatest point maybe I've ever heard, which is that if you're a business, a lot of times you're more valuable before you try to put your product out to the market because it's this crazy idea with technology nobody's ever heard of. It's got a thing that is insane, and it's a single drop of blood. It's like this crazy. Don't mean to bring that up, but you know what I'm saying? It's like crazy, sometimes reasonable, sometimes unreasonable. And you're worth all this money, and then you put it out into the market and nobody wants it, and suddenly you're not worth anything. But as a business owner, you're like, oh, no big deal. I'll start another business. But as an artist, you're like, ooh, wait, this is literally, I've been writing, this is my life and my art and this is me.
Yeah.
To a degree. You can't pivot.
So you not only have to pivot on your product, you have to pivot on your approach. You have to pivot on your process, and that's a lot for one human to do.
Well, part of the reason I was wondering is that, like, you create something and it might be out of the ordinary or zig when you should have zagged, and then sometimes that's what gives the magic, right? And almost every origin story of some incredibly famous rock star has the thing where they didn't do what they were supposed to do, and then it broke out and it was against the grain. But like now the measurement is so instantaneous, right? That like, you don't have that thing where you don't really know, maybe we should try to, like you instantly get this feedback. It's like, it'd be like if you told a joke and everyone did a rating phone joke, it would like, you would never tell another joke, probably. It's like,
it's not like your jokes where we laugh just to make you feel good.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, we just kind of humor you.
We're going to pay you.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
kind of.
So I was just curious, like, that's the thing that'll be, because, you have to have a thick skin anyway, obviously, to be a performer, but I just wonder if it changes at all.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of faith involved in that. Right. I don't mean faith religious. I just mean faith from core, human standpoint of, no, this is good. It'll have its day, which is very hard to do when you're starting out, Right. Yeah. Well, we'd unpack all these things for hours.
There's a lot. Yes, because I've always wondered, I'm a mostly analytical person. People who are really creative, I always wonder how they balance their creativity with the fact that you're obviously smart, analytical, and you know what's going on. So like you already know, like, okay, well, I did this from a place of inspiration, but then I kind of like, is it too soft? You already kind of know.
And you want to make sure other people are inspired by it too. Like you feel really proud of it, but like if you go out there and you throw it out there and people aren't getting the same response that maybe you had hoped, is that like super discouraging where you're like, oh, now what do I do?
Right.
Do I try again, or do I just...
Again, all of these are where the mental wellness comes in, because you got to know you got to be familiar with your patterns, your soft, your weak, your blind spots, your internal narrative messaging, and how that's going to affect the way that you walk into a room to write the next song. And like we were joking, like 100 songs to make 10 songs. Like the reason is because I got to be able to go in and get, say like, I have no idea where this is going to go or what this is going to do or what the point of this song is. I just know we have to write this today. And if there's anything, there's a handful of things I'm really proud of. That's one of the things I'm really proud of getting better at, being able to walk in with conviction and saying, guys, I'm not saying this is the next big single. One day it will be, I think, because I feel very compelled that we need to write this thing.
Yeah. That's great.
The inspiration just hit.
Well, I mean, I do totally love and agree and subscribe and go to the church of inspirations everywhere. It just has to find you working. It has to find you open, I think, is my interpretation of it.
That was my favorite part of the 9-hour Beatles documentary, which I watched about 5 times. But is that when they're waiting, when George has quit and they're waiting for John to show up, he's late. Ringo and Paul are sitting around. And he writes "Get Back" on a bass guitar, sitting on like a stool. He just writes it.
Yeah.
You're like, what the hell? He just starts going. Ringo starts going. It's the damnedest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's like, how did that happen?
And that's where the best stuff happens is when you're just
Right.
you're just open to receiving it.
Yeah.
You're like, this doesn't have to be a thing. But this is a thing now, and I'm here to write it down.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And there's also that sort of that forward motion. You're in the process. You're in the process of moving and writing songs, and the world sees the motion, and it either gets out of the way or it joins, maybe, or sometimes it gets in the way, and then hopefully you keep going.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up an interesting point. So you can have a song that's not working. You can be in front of an audience that doesn't want to hear it, and if you have the right energy on that stage, it will translate. They'll get it. They will get it from an energetic place.
Yeah, totally.
And you can change the course of it.
Speaking of jokes, that's what I do when it doesn't work the first time. I just keep telling it
energetically. You shift the energy around it.
Keep going. And there's one person in the world who I could repeat it a bunch of times, and it doesn't matter. And her name is Megan Russell. She doesn't care how many times I say it. All right. Thanks, Mike, for your question that took 20 minutes to answer. I appreciate it, buddy.
Are we done?
Yeah, that's it.
It's a wrap.
That's how you build a business, folks.
I'll take responsibility for that.
No, thank you. All right. Next question. This is really, really important. Then we'll get to the origin story. Is AI going to ruin music or the world or both?
I think you guys, it's funny because you wouldn't think these.
I went with ruin for you because I was trying to be extreme and crazy.
It's so funny to me that as an artist, I'm looking at this going, these are all very controversial topics. Not to say that
we're not trying to go there. We're just trying to do goofy stuff.
I do think that, should we be worried about it? Yes. Should regulation, et cetera, like that whole conversation, 100%. From I've seen what happens when humans make something that other humans connect with. You'll never be able to do that. I know it. You'll never be able to do it. You can get close. We will know humans know the difference. Someone I worked very closely with made the point that we're not in the age of information. We passed that point. It used to be information was the most valuable thing you could have. Now it's everywhere, right? So now energy, gut instinct, I guess, is. We're in the age of energy. And I don't mean that to I think some people see that term as very hippie or whatever. But I mean, you can look at me when I walk in the room and you know exactly how you feel about me when I walk in the room. That's what I'm talking about. We will never lose that. We're humans. We need that to survive. We've always needed it. And we've never needed it more than now. And I think we will adapt to it. And nothing will ever be able to sort of overcome that feeling of gut instinct. Someone gets on stage and says something, we feel good about it. And we can be fooled. No, we can be met in certain places that don't necessarily. I don't think AI is gonna. No, I don't think it'll replace the stratospheric level that music and human connection can get to in its purest form.
Yeah, and look. I have some family from Memphis. I am not from the South, but a term that I think of with this topic is made with love.
Mm-hmm.
These biscuits were made with love.
Yeah.
And you know what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they technically the same biscuits as somebody else made? Sure. But there's something that jumps off the page.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because AI is just a machine. Really, it's just like a robot type situation. So there's no emotion there at all whatsoever. So you can write the most beautiful love song, but an artist has to. I could go on AI right now and write some love song probably with AI, but somebody that is an artist has to deliver that song. So,
there's reading the room. There's a lot more to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, those are the crazy questions, right? You think it's going to come get us?
You do?
Well, I just think having been in tech for 40 years, every time there's been something new, people have underestimated its impact, not over in the long run.
Well, the guy that created AI is freaked out about it. He's like, I wish I wouldn't have done it. Like now he's even scared about it. But I just don't think music, I think it's going to replace a lot of things, but I don't think it's going to replace, he's right. I mean, music is
I hope
such a heart.
Yeah, I hope he's right. I'm just saying, I don't know.
Well, I think music for me, and this is an interesting side topic.
Mm-hmm.
What do you look for when you go to music, right? Because for me, I look for human connection. Some people need a certain beat, need a certain BPM. Some people need it for workouts. Some people need it for relaxation. So in that case, it's probably going to be a really cool synth engine, and you could absolutely do that with AI.
For example, for me, anything that I like it better live. All I do is seek out the live versions of it because I like a little bit of error and variation versus just listening to the classic studio version of whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I'm with you that way.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in general, I'm just a little worried because audio is not as much information as video, per second or whatever. It's not really not that much data. So it's a fairly easy problem for AI to process every love song that's ever been written and is on Spotify or Apple Music and then come up with a version of it that sounds 2% different. I'm just saying.
And as music is more and more, I'm not trying to disparage any person who's putting on music, but it is because of the nature of streaming and TikTok. Yeah, it's becoming more and more quickly made. And so perhaps easier to fool somebody. I don't know.
I hope I'm wrong.
In some ways.
Someone's going to go on and AI is going to come out with a single and it's going to be some crazy name like Mike. And they're going to, and they're going to be like this have a number one song and no one's going to know it's an AI. Like they're going to win all these awards based on an AI. And
some of that has already happened, but what about just this? AI puts out 7 million songs in one day and they're all pretty good.
Well, what about
humans can't do that?
Well, what about, so there's a friend of mine showed me, I think maybe it was you. Somebody showed me, I think it was Eddie Barkat. But anyway, somebody online showed me that look, check out this girl on Instagram.
Yeah, there's all these fake girls on Instagram.
But they're fake. Like it's not real. And these girls are like, they look like Madison and Mia, like twins. And they're out there and they're going all these places and they're legit.
Yeah.
They're influencers, but they're not real. They're fake. They're like, it's an AI.
Try having 2 daughters and teaching them these lessons.
It's nuts. Okay, just to give you a flavor, there's a fairly big business, several big businesses now of fake clothing. By fake, I mean digital clothing. So that people buy clothing online to change what they're wearing in Instagram pictures that aren't real clothes. They're never made.
What is that?
So like they take a picture of you, right?
Right.
And then they put different clothes on. And they pay for those clothes.
Sort of like Fortnite or something.
Exactly. It's exactly like Fortnite. There are no actual clothes.
All right. Well, I think you should just hang out in Hawaii on the beach.
It's like an actual business.
I'm moving Bahamas. Anyone?
I know.
Let's go.
I know. Croatia.
All right. So enough about AI.
Stuff.
So Hunter, I'm just imagining you're finally able to crawl as an infant, and you crawl over to a piano, and you just start playing it. Right? It's just, there was never a day with like, where did it all, maybe that's how let's rewrite it.
Okay.
No, but anyway, how did this all get started, man?
So the story goes, because I don't remember, this is before I could form core memories. No one in my family was musical that I knew. Apparently I had an uncle that played an instrument. I honestly, and again, that's where like I think in the right environment, my parents would have been musical, I was introduced to a lot of, I was my babysitter when I was 2, would watch a lot of live music, and I was enamored with it apparently. And I would take things around the house and make them into fake instruments and pretend that I was playing as part of the band. And then my grandmother, who would also watch me do the same thing, gave me a toy instrument for my 2nd birthday, and I just never put it down. And my dad bought 5 other ones just to have parts to fix the one that I would carry around all the time. And then it was like, all right, well, what are we going to give him for next Christmas? Well, let's give him another instrument. So like if I was 5, so like it started with the toy accordion, and I was like 2.5, 3, like learning how to play this thing. And my dad tells the story quite often, so I'm just trying to remember exactly how he said it. But essentially, he was driving me to school, and I played along with a song on the radio because I'd like heard it enough and I'd figured it out.
So you can play by ear.
Play by ear, yeah. And he like pulled over and he was like, play it again. And apparently I played it again. And then we started going to the performances with these bands that I was watching or listening to. And one of the bands, Richard LaBeouf, asked my dad during a break, like, can he play? And my dad was like, yeah, he knows these 3 songs. And he was like, all right, well, we'll play it. And so they played the song. They pulled me up. I played the song. I sang in French, even though I had no idea what I was saying. And then it just kind of grew from like, I did that a lot. I would sit in with bands as a like 34-year-old. 4, I think, was like the first real one. And then that just happened more. And then one of the things that led to a lot of bigger developments in my career was when I was 5. This happened in front of Charlie Daniels, who introduced me to Hank Williams Jr. at a show in my hometown. And then Hank's manager invited me and my mom and dad to go to Texas Motor Speedway, where they would do the original sort of like, not, I wouldn't say CMA Fest because it was not associated with the CMAs, but it was kind of that same concept. Here's a big festival. Here's 100,000 people. And here's like your top headliners of the year. They would tape every performance and they would air one song from every performance. And that my performance with Hank Williams Jr. aired that later that year on the Nashville network at the time. And then that led to all kinds of other crazy stuff. You know, then it was like a bunch of daytime talk shows that called my dad and, you know, kind of let me go on and play a song. And then when I was like 7, which is weird to say, but I was playing these 2-hour shows with this band and I was like the kid in the front singing. I wanted to be on stage the whole time. I did not have stage parents. They did not force me. There's a notable time where like they invited me up on stage. I was taking a nap. My dad was like, listen, he's sleeping. And I missed it. And so, in fact, my dad, like when I was 14 or 15, right before I moved to Nashville, he was like, listen, you know, I feel like we've done really good. We've got a lot of gigs. You're playing a lot. And I just want to make sure that you're not doing this because it's become the thing that you do. Like, I want to make sure that you're doing this because you want to do it. He's like, I'm going to kind of clear the schedule this year. I'm not going to take any gigs. Like, you need to be just a kid in school. And I sobbed for days. I was distraught. It killed me. And I wrote so much that year and I like built my studio at home. And like, that's when I found like producing and really got into production and I made an album that year. So yeah, it's kind of, that's a quick sort of there to there.
Yeah. So
that's amazing. That's incredible.
So did you feel like I must be different, or like how did it, like, say you're like 6 or 7, whatever, you must have known like it's like you're super, like, you know, super boy. Like, did you feel like
no, that's just like ADD focus. You know what I mean? Like, that's a great example of like, there's one thing that I get along with. So I just did that thing.
Right.
There was one thing that like it was, and it just brought me so much joy. And let's also factor in the perform for love complex. Like,
sure.
I love performing because it gave me a place to be where I felt confident and I felt capable and all those things. And then with songwriting, okay, that's a place where I now get to go and process the shit that doesn't make any sense and turn it into something that like is good and gives me more purpose and it's empowering. And yeah, I feel seen because I'm performing for people, all those things. Yeah.
But I do remember personally having a moment where everybody's playing basketball. You're in a neighborhood, kids go play basketball, and whether you're good, bad, or otherwise, you can usually get out there and do something. And I remember at some point, and of course I was excellent at basketball. No, I was very average. But I remember at some point being like, hey, let's go drum, everybody.
Mm.
And they're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of a moment, at least in my life, where I realized that, oh, this isn't exactly something like everybody does. Did you,
Well, okay. So that's why I'm such an advocate for music education or art education, because I do want to see more avenues for young people to have something that isn't competitive, that does encourage.
Well, it's just analytical.
Yeah. That just works on, a different side of your brain and encourages that. Because I think that's like everyone would, no two people would play the same part. It's just like it encourages individuality and
well, you're
discovery.
You're so right, because as tech has taken over the world, a large number of jobs involve sitting in front of a laptop, analyzing something that got measured and trying to sell something based on it. There's just variations of that same thing over. Like I have daughters who are 28 and 30. And whenever I meet their friends, I go, what are you doing? What are you doing? What's your job? Whatever. And basically almost anybody who works in tech is some variant of what I just described, what they do all day long, which has got to be the most soul-sucking thing ever invented. You're not actually talking to anybody, right? You're not like, Yeah. So I agree with you. The more people can be pitched on using their right brain early on and enjoying it, the better.
And like grow in understanding how you interact with the thing that you get excited about.
Yeah, that's right. That's a really good
You know?
And we almost get it wrong in music education as well. Like the Western school of music is almost more about like lining up and trying to compete with other people rather than expressing something.
Schools too. A lot of it's which is horrible.
Well, yeah, it's the entire way that music education works in the Western world. And really the truth is it's a lot like writing and language in that you build your facility on your instrument so that you can communicate in a way where there's clarity. Like if you don't have a facility on your instrument, you can't clearly express what you're trying to express. Language is the same way, writing is the same way. And, and then and only then can you get something across that's like, as a public speaker, you can get something across because you understand language. And I think in Western music education, a lot of times we make the facility the thing. And it gets it wrong a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I think
facility. What do you mean?
Technical ability on the instrument.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, even that I'm using jargon so you don't understand. You know what I mean? Like it would be nice if we if we describe, the way you describe discovering all these instruments, if we encourage that in some way. Yeah. Because we give that opportunity for basketball and baseball for most kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Less so actually now.
They've probably taken that out too.
Now by fifth grade, you got to go play select soccer.
Exactly.
Baseball.
It's not in school so much anymore.
Yeah, right. That's right.
They've taken it out.
That's right.
All right. So you're 15. Your dad tries to talk you out of music. It doesn't work.
Bless his heart.
Because you're living out that part. That
too.
Like, I mean, I tried that with people that say they want to do music. I'm like, and then when I can't talk them out of it, great.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're living out this Luke Combs song. If I wasn't doing this, I'd still be doing this.
Yeah.
Right? This is what I do. And then what? So now it's time to move here.
He's built his own studio.
You built your studio in your
the spare bedroom in the house. Yeah. Was the studio. And that's where I was happiest. So I was recording an album. And well, then, I don't know what category road should I go down? Because I think there's one element of I was playing a lot of Cajun French music, but I was writing country, blues, rock, alt, pop, literally whatever the fuck I heard I threw together in my own way, like, kind of making up my own stuff just because that was what I was compelled to do. It was more fun. And I also just was like, okay, I can make something that doesn't exist. That was kind of the goal. I was making shit up, man. I was writing by myself. I was writing, my emotions. I was processing my emotions as a 13, 14, 15-year-old human. And that was my way of processing. It was my way of understanding. It was my way of working through feelings as we talk more about mental wellness in this world. Like, you got to work through it. Get through it, feel through it. And that was my way of doing that rather than stuffing it or running or avoiding or all those other things. Like that was my process. So, just like, so then it's okay. So now I'm writing songs and I'm hearing, and that's the weird part. So like I'm writing songs and I can hear them. I can hear them done. But they're not done. they don't get done because I don't have the budget to get them done. I can't go to a studio and get a drummer on it. I can't go to a studio and I can't get a producer. Like all these things cost money and I'm still in the trial and error phase of being a fucking 15-year-old. So then it's like, okay, well, how can I get a drum kit in the room and mic it with 2 mics so that there's drums on this? And so then starts the process of, and that's why I love production. That's why I love working on music in that space. And that's why I can never pick when somebody's like, if you had to pick, writing and producing or performing, it's like, fuck off. The beauty of that process is so interesting because it goes from something in your head to something that exists. But the challenge of making that happen is like, okay, well, I can record drums, but they don't sound like they should, like the way that I hear it in my head. And so that's a really fun process. And that's when I fell in love with that process, was that era, that time of, I hear it and it doesn't exist. How can I make it exist? I don't know how to play steel guitar, borrow a steel guitar, spend, 4, 5, 6 hours one night. Basically, my buddy set it up at 10 p.m. and I played until 4 a.m. and I got the riff that is on Everybody's Got Somebody But Me, because that was the night that I learned how to play steel guitar, but I knew I wanted steel guitar. So that's when I fell in love with that part of the process. There's something absolutely beautiful about no one being in the way either. If you want it, you can do it. You just gotta be willing to put in the time.
Well, Mike, how many years have you spent trying to get other people to do shit?
Yeah.
It works both ways though, because you're right. A lot of times it's like, it's not going to be good. I'll just fucking do it. This is this,
which can also be a curse, right? Yeah,
just do
exactly.
everything, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But that takes a lot of patience.
Yeah, which maybe is why I have none left.
It could be.
But
I mean, seriously, it takes a lot of patience.
It does.
Every goddamn
It's a lot of work.
right?
It does. It does. Well, it does, and the payoff is so sweet, and it's sweet in little increments, right? Like every time something happens, it's a jolt.
I mean, it's a little easier now that it's digital. At least you can go do one thing
For sure.
Yeah.
No, I can loop record, and it's gonna keep playing the song in the same loop for 3
I
hours.
watched my son do this, and it's amazing how much easier it is than even like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like it's kind of amazing. That
sure.
helps a little bit, but I get what you're saying, because if you hear it that way, you hear it that way. It's kind of remarkable.
Yeah, it's fun.
So now you're getting a little closer to what you're hearing in your head. At some point, leaves your bedroom studio.
Mm.
So what did that happen? How did that go?
So I don't want anyone to go look this up. In fact, I'm not even going to say the name of the album, but I put together an album. And what was funny was, because I'm 15 and 16, I had started making trips to Nashville. So mom and dad and I are driving. My mom's a school teacher, so she has the same days off that I did. My dad had a little bit of flexibility because he's a workaholic and he was always working. So he could ask off anytime. He didn't even have to ask off. He worked for a guy that understood the situation. And so he was able to leave with us, and still we'd drive through the night. So school would finish on Friday. We'd drive through the night. We'd go to Nashville. We'd meet with whoever would take a meeting and talk about whatever we could talk about. And so it was an awkward time, because it was like I was writing a lot of stuff that I loved, and there were a lot of people like, oh, you should hold on to that. Like, wait until you get signed. That'll be a big hit. And now I've learned, like, all those things that sat on a shelf and waited are still on a shelf waiting. Because you're always going to beat what you've made. And that's a really encouraging thing that I try to share with everyone, not just creatives. It's like, you're always going to be capable of beating what you just did. Always. And so that was 13, 14, 15, traveling to Nashville, meeting with people. And I was like, listen, I just want to put this stuff out. Like, it was independent, etc. And so, we just figured it out. Like, I don't know, like, my buddy Eddie Baudin had a studio. I met Eddie through Rick. Rick was anyway, a lot of people introduced, and then Tony Ardoin played a huge role in introducing me to somebody at a major record label. Rick brought me to Nashville and introduced me to everybody that he knew from Nashville. Same with Eddie, but Eddie also had resources too. He had a studio that he gave me the key to, and it was like an hour drive from where I actually lived. So I would often spend the night on the couch in the studio, but, I don't know. It was just like all these things sort of like dancing around me and giving me, it was opportunity. And I just kept like kind of jumping with it. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. And you were coming here. It was that forward motion. You were making your trip here. You were doing things. You were meeting people. You were taking meetings. You were doing it. Yeah.
Said yes to everything.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. So then you get signed at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's like, and that's a one sentence thing to say on the back end or on this side. I had gone to 3 major labels at the time. You could say the big 3, right? And all of them said the same thing, which was like, man, we love what you're doing. We don't know what to do with it. And it's been really sweet, because there's been a couple of articles that have come out in the last 10 years where like 1 or 2 of the people have said, they've been asked the questions like, what did you miss? And they, I'm very grateful that my name was on. It's sweet. It's sweet. And also everyone had good things to say, the only one meeting that I was ready to walk out on was the guy who was just like, okay, so you write everything yourself. And I was like, yeah. He's like, would you ever just not write everything and just take songs? And I was like, even then I knew these were two different conversations. It's like collaborating, like, do other people make brilliant stuff? Yes. Am I here because I do a thing that only I can do? Yes. So my value is, you know what I mean? Like, even then I knew that there was something wasn't right about that conversation, but, yeah. So I went to the big three, and they all kind of said the same thing. And then it took somebody from New York coming in that was also working with a Nashville company saying, I get it. I see it. I get it. You need to do that. And that's it. We need to give you everything you need to do that. So you can go do it. And then we stayed on this point. And they were right. 15 years later, they were right about all of it. So, I'm really grateful for that. That was a big part of that. So yeah, so it took kind of some outside perspective, and then then people in Nashville started to also understand and see it, and yeah, and then it was just kind of like, then I felt like the train just was just at full steam.
So that's awesome. So then you're suddenly not, you're not playing French music anymore.
Right.
You're playing arenas.
Yeah.
And what's that experience?
Suddenly,
yeah. Like, playing French, you get a lawyer who makes you not sign a crap deal. And then, you're playing arenas. I'm sure it's funny because it's like you have had this is one of the things that Wendy said when we were putting together our research stuff on everybody, because we don't know who you are. We've never heard of you before. I'm joking.
That's also fair.
But no, it's not true. That's not true at all.
Years ago, with my twins.
But one of the things that she was saying was like,
Melon Hour wins.
Wow, Hunter has had such a long career.
He has, and he's
so young. Yeah, and I'm like,
and he's so young. It's my twins. That's 10 years ago.
Even just
12 years ago. It was 2012.
Can I say one more time?
Was that 2014?
Was I wearing sunglasses at night?
2014. Yeah, you were in the we were in the artist area, and you were just walking around right before you went on stage. That funny?
Oh wow,
it's a great.
It's my twins and their best friend.
Did you wear the sunglasses on stage?
I don't know
at
what the deal with the
Stagecoach?
sunglasses is. That's not like me.
Stylist.
Yeah, whatever Stagecoach. Yeah,
The stylist was like,
that was 10 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So we know who he is.
Yeah, but all these
plus we followed you.
all these things that are one sentence are in your memory are very, even just signing a record deal is months of back and forth and talking.
Years of going into many offices and trying to explain to people what it is that I do, realizing you're gonna have to just come and see it to get it, or you're just gonna have to listen to the music and get it. And a year of negotiating a contract. I punched a hole in a wall from just continuing to get the news, we haven't gotten there yet, and I'm watching a bunch of my friends at the time who were lining up to get signed. They're just getting signed left and right. And I'm sitting here going why are we negotiating still a year in? And I'm glad we did. I'm so glad we did. And honestly, the day that I nearly gave up, our mutual friend called me into the office to sign the deal that was done. Because they play a little joke on me. They were like, we need you to come in and sign some trademark paperwork. And which has become code for we've finished the deal.
Oh, that's awesome.
And, it's time for you to come and sign it. So I got to go and drive down and surprise Dad for Father's Day, actually, when I signed my record deal. But
it's true. I mean, you have had a really long career, and you are still so young. So you have so much of a career left. You know what I mean? It's not like he got signed at 30 and he's 55, 60.
Right.
And we're like, okay, well, I mean, he's still at the age where people are still trying to get signed. I mean, 32 is young.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he's still has such a long career. That's why I said he's the Doogie Howser of country music. He plays everything. He writes his own music.
Right.
He's super talented. He's vocally he's awesome.
Thank you for all of that.
Well, no, it's true. It's a true statement. It's just your career is really amazing because we could talk about this, but we have to come back in 10 more years and say wow, that 10 years was crazy,
Yeah.
So because what are you doing? You're getting ready to release. You have an album, right? There's something you just told me.
I have a lot of stuff on the books for this year.
Yeah, I mean that's what
I think the stuff that I was saying was not available for public comment.
No,
it's just stuff's coming out.
Yeah.
Stuff's coming out.
No, I didn't hear it. I'm just saying that you were saying that he had a bunch coming out, a bunch. And I don't know if it's movies or music or what it is, but you just have a bunch on the which
I
is
do.
amazing.
Space Apes, yeah.
So one question I have is that, like, there's a famous quote from David Gilmour from Pink Floyd where he's talking about after they'd done Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, and they were having trouble figuring out their next album. He goes, basically the whole goal had been to become rich and famous, and now we were. Like, period, new paragraph, right? Like,
Right.
now what, right? And so, like, you know, I mean, it's all relative, but does it change where your inspiration comes from that you feel successful and validated? I mean, versus like I'm struggling to make it, you know, like.
Well, I love, like, you know, one of my favorite things that I ever heard, like, Casey Neistat say was like, I don't make movies to make money. I make money to make movies.
Right.
And I've heard a lot of music people that I follow say something similar.
Yeah,
And
that
I
is
think
cool.
I would say that I make money to make music. My manager's sitting here. She can tell you.
Yeah.
Like,
Right, yeah.
I'll say yes to a great money opportunity if I know I need to.
Sure.
Right.
It's never been about that. I've had a vision board. It's been outrageous for a long time. I have expensive taste. But
Sure.
at the end of the day, it's not as important as the thing that I'm doing and the thing that I'm making and what its value is. And so,
So where does the inspiration come from?
well,
You know, you write a song like "My Pool's Dirty."
I don't have a pool.
I'm
I would
just
like
kidding.
one.
It is on the board.
It is on the board. Yeah.
Not in here.
I'm actually envisioning a container pool.
Six.
No, I'm still human, so I'm still feeling stuff,
Yeah, right.
you know?
That's good. That's
Um,
right.
And I think that because it was never about that, it will never be about that. My focus has never been there, so my focus has always been on being a human. I guess I don't know. I'm taking a lot of credit
No,
for,
that's a good answer.
but
It's quite about recreating yourself too, right? I mean, it's like reinventing yourself all the time with all the new, I mean, everything new. People coming out. I mean, he has to like
Yeah,
reinvent.
yeah.
well, and that's an interesting topic too, because reinventing, I find it funny when everybody's like, well, they reinvented themselves, and I think in some cases, like, people have to create a persona and a character,
Right.
or not have to, but I think some people are really good at that, and I respect the shit out of that, and I've never been good at that. I sometimes wish I could have a persona and a character, and yet I'm very grateful that I haven't done that, just because of the kind of person that, just because of like the way that I am. I'm not. Nothing's better or worse. I'm just saying, like, I don't think I would work well playing a part,
Right.
because I show up different every day, and I very much like don't have the capacity to show up consistently the same exact way every day. I very much move with the emotions and use that as part of my art, my performance, my writing, my production, everything. So like, reinventing it for me is more or less just like checking in. Like,
Right.
right now, you know, the project that I'm working on that I haven't really, I'm not going to say anything about, other than it's, you know, it's gone, it's changed. I've had this like visual, like, kind of this dream like relationship with it, where I've said, I think it's about this. And then, you know, 2 years in, I was like, no, I think it's about this. And then, like, last year I had another epiphany, and I was like, no, it's not any of those things. Where I can, the thing I want to say is this: the place that I can enter this conversation is this angle, and I need to do my homework to make sure that I'm doing that to the best of my ability. So I now have to develop a lot of things around that technique in that process, so that I can be good to that process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And by reinventing, I mean like evolving. Like, we all evolve. No
Evolve,
matter-
yeah.
we all have to. I mean, we can't stay in the same place we were at the age of 15. Like, we have to evolve. And so as
I've
times
tried.
change, Mike unfortunately has not. He's a little stuck.
It's a little slow.
He's trying. We're pushing.
We have to unpack that.
Yeah, we're trying. But no, but I mean, you have to evolve, and with that is like great growth. I mean, you obviously, right? And
But also, what you
you'll
just
change.
what you just described is a lesson
Right.
in mental health. Not calling myself an expert, but the research that I've done is about the creative process and mental health.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out, when you're engaged in the creative process, generally speaking, there's a lot lower levels of depression and anxiety across this. Well, I was looking at mostly adolescents, but I realized in my own life, like, it doesn't matter if I'm in the back building a shed
Mhm.
or whatever the heck I'm doing. If it's something where I'm trying to find corners and I'm trying to create something from nothing, and there's something about that is like innately human that we just need to do. It makes us happy.
You're constantly, I mean, I'm going to get this wrong, but like, yeah, you're like creating the new neural pathways, which is creating new habits, which is creating new room for new habits. And yeah, you're
And so you're
neural
engaged
path-
in that. And maybe the end result of that is evolution as an artist. But
That
it's
is,
really just like constantly thinking about, at one point you said to me, music's a 24/7 job for me. And it's really like the creative, just being ultra engaged in that creative process, what it sounds like.
yeah.
Well,
All right.
yeah.
What's up?
No,
You got one more?
I don't.
Come
I'm
I
good.
don't really either. It's amazing.
Yeah,
You've
your
got-
story
you're
is
really in touch with
incredible.
what you're doing, which I think is amazing. It's like,
Appreciate that.
you've done lots of mental health.
We got one final question.
It's easier
Right now,
to
I
just become
feel
a
like
heroin.
we're all gonna melt.
It would have been easier to just be a heroin addict,
Yeah.
like a certain percentage.
I'm laughing at that. I'm like,
It's great inspiration, Mike.
Yeah,
Yeah.
way to leave it off.
Yeah. Wow. Deep.
All right.
That's what Mikey Slade.
Last question. This music thing. People who find success or enjoy careers or find a way to, maybe success is just having a career where you can make money to make music. But people who do well in this game, do you think it's about who you know, who you meet, connections, luck? Or is it hard work, dedication, building your craft, something else? How do people find
well, I don't
success?
mean to be that guy in the room, but like, art is unique. We talked about art education because it encourages, it builds the tools, muscles, things needed for growth, right? And then it encourages individually, like unique, like embracing your uniqueness, and so like in that, like, what is success to every single person? That's different. And so I don't, for me, I have my own sort of like things that I want from this year, things that I want from, let's say, 5 years from now, or overall in my career, which helps me say like yes or no to certain things based on no, absolutely not. I know for a fact that in 60 years I'm going to regret that I did that. But that's because like I've just begun, like, because it used to be like I wanted certain numbers, certain accolades, certain numbers when it came to like touring, and I still do, but from a different way. I want to know that, and I guess I've always felt that, though. I will say I've always like wanted to play certain room sizes because that's the amount of people that I want to resonate with. So honestly, like, and I'll take this from one of our mutual friends who said this. I mean, an annoying word, but persistence is kind of a big part of it, because you're going to make a lot of great shit that no one ever hears.
Recurring theme too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you and the sort of, I'm sure I know you guys have talked about just your relationship with failure and not letting it be what a lot of people use the word failure for, right? It's all class. Everything is class. And everything can be learned from, and everything can be used for you, so again, I don't mean to be like the guy trying to be like super heady or philosophical. I think that's something I've really focused on lately, is when an artist, comes to me and they're building their, early stages of their career. I'm just like, man, get it. Like, like my encouragement is just like, dig as much as you can into what looks fun and what looks like hell. Whatever that is, like, if that's room sizes that really matter to you, if you really want stadiums, great. Go just get curious about every stadium act you can find. Get on the tour. It doesn't matter if you're playing it, just go on a bus for a weekend. Watch the tour operate. See how the crew functions, see what the tour manager's like, see what decisions management's making, if it's songwriting, then, get in the room with every single songwriter, feel what feels good and feel what doesn't. And like, so I don't know. I'm a big proponent of like encouraging this specificity of like what you feel called to do. Because everything's a calling. Everything's a calling. Everybody has a calling, and they have different callings at different times of their life. It changes seasonally, it changes yearly, etc. So like, I wish I had a better answer to that, but I think it's different for everybody. I think the best thing you can do is not look at it. I think that's why I feel so compelled to say it. All the shit that I'm saying right now is because if there's one thing that I can say, it's like, don't feel compelled to measure first. I guess measure later. Measure once you've developed your own measuring system. But don't start by measuring.
Don't be a prisoner of measurement.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, or
Hard to do.
a measurement.
It is.
We gotta,
A measurement that doesn't even evaluate what you're trying to do. It's somebody else's evaluative system.
all right.
All right, Hunter.
You're the best. Thank you.
Dude,
Yeah.
you're awesome.
Yeah, it's really like
We brought the heat.
Yes,
No, it's-
exactly.